So what do you think of the Nisis?
Well, I haven't got to use them. So.
What do you think of the Nisis?
I really like the Nisis. I think there's definitely enough of a look to them to make them like desirable and they give you a certain vibe that you'd like. Yeah.
Cine Gear 2023 was the first time I saw the Nisi Athenas in person. And when I was there, I was not super interested. I wasn't thrilled. I really didn't pay no mind to them. And that was a little premature. Fast forward to now, I've used the entire set of Athenas on projects from Nat Geo to Delta Airlines and many others. And I've actually purchased the 14, 35, and the 85 is on its way. So you might ask, what made me change my mind? Let me explain. Now, the most important thing when talking about lenses is the image quality. What do they produce? How well do they do it? And I just have to note that it's really impressive and really bold of Nisi to go the opposite direction of what current trends are really doing in terms of lenses. You know, everyone is coming out with a vintage feel or vintage that. And sometimes I feel like that term vintage is becoming a crutch for these smaller budget lenses. And no one's really taking the time to make a really good lens and allowing that to speak for itself. But getting back to what Nisi's doing, they've made a very clean, well-performing lens at an affordable price point at only roughly like $1,100, $1,200 per lens that optically performs as well as Sigma primes or the Zeiss CP3s or any lens that's not trying to be vintage, basically. The first thing I want to point out is that these lenses are very fast at t1.9, and the t1.9 is good. There have been plenty of times where I've seen very fast aperture lenses that at a budget-ish, sub $1,000, and they have a very fast t-stop, but that t-stop is unusable. Now, I'm not saying I'm going around shooting everything wide open, but there's something about having a lens that holds its detail and quality wide open and allowing that background just to fall away. That is a testament to Nisi to actually get that type of quality in a small lens like this at this price point. Just wow. The micro contrast is theirs, which allows your subjects to kind of pop off the screen a bit so it doesn't feel too flat. The flares are not overwhelming when light hits it. It does veil a little bit, but nothing like crazy. Lens breathing is well controlled as well as the chromatic aberration. Now, if you watched a few other videos that have been out, some people have mentioned that the 25 and 35 don't perform as well. I think if you're going to be pixel peeping, and I'm not calling anybody out, but if you are putting them in a scenario where you're going to test that exact thing, you will find it. But when I was using it out in the field in Peru or on a plane or whatever, it doesn't scream at you. It doesn't say, hey, I have CA over here, I'm a bad lens. No, they're all pretty much well controlled throughout the entire lens set, and they all work harmoniously together. Just a note, whether you are using vintage lenses or vintage style lenses or clean lenses, it doesn't make you less or more of a cinematographer when using either one. Like, okay, when was the last time you watched Sicario or 1917 and you said to yourself, man, these lenses are just too clean. I don't like them. They're not the right choice. You wouldn't say that because you're more engaged with the camera movement, the lighting, the composition, the overall story. You're worried about all those other things because you're enjoying it. You're consuming that. What I'm trying to say is stop thinking that the choices are one or the other. Lenses are just one piece of the puzzle. All right, I'm getting off my high horse now. Okay, before I move on real quick, I want to talk about today's sponsor, which is crdbag. Now, if you guys follow my channel, you already know that I am a huge fan of crdbag. They're the only bags I use now when I travel, organizing my gear here in the studio. And they were kind enough to send over some new products for me to test out. And the first one is called the Y-Wrap. This is actually a spin-off of the traditional sort of lens wrap, and it comes in 3 sizes: small, medium, and large. Some other new products that they have a new sling so you can attach the pouches directly to it so you can have it across your chest. I'm very excited to see what new products that crdbag will be coming out with. These are really cool to have, and I'm definitely gonna be using it in my kit. But stick around and follow them because there might be a really dope collaboration coming up very soon. So if you're interested in these, there is a link in the description as well as a discount code, Cine Dailies 15. If you use that at checkout, you get 15% off. Cool.
All right, Caleb, we're at the airport, but you finally got your chance to use the lenses. What did you think?
Dude, yeah, they are exceptional, actually. I was using mostly like the Sony 24-70-2.8, just a workhorse, documentary style. But man, when you put on the cinema lenses, they're actually really good.
Yeah.
A lot more, I think they're actually a lot, they look clearer. Yeah, I don't know. And the T19 going from f2.8.
Yeah,
huge
that helped.
difference.
That helped with
Separation.
the dinner that we shot that had terrible lighting.
And in the market, there's a lot of like details and kind of a mess. Like in scenes like there's a lot of hanging stuff on the wall or colors. When you can just kind of mush those in the background together a little more. And this is obvious, like if it's just a faster lens, but the Nisi specifically, super smooth, super buttery. They felt really solid. And the character's nice, so yeah, from the look of it, we were always trying to steal each other's. We only had one PL to Sony mount.
Yeah.
Josh would finally let me use them.
What?
and then I didn't want to give them back once I put them on.
Yeah. Sick.
So the main question I was getting a lot is how these compare to the Dzofilm. And I hope by now, all the footage you've been seeing, you can kind of get an idea of how these lenses react in real world scenarios. And if you haven't used a Dzo lens before, highly recommend if you can rent it. But I do have a full review of those lenses, the 21, 40, and I think I had a longer one, but those two, definitely check them out. I do really love the Dzofilms and what they offer, but I see these are two distinctly different types of lenses when it comes to character. But since I don't have the Dzofilms in-house right now, I'm not going to be doing a comparison, side-by-side comparison. Maybe that will come a little bit later. There was a gentleman who made a whole 30-40 minute video of just comparing 4 different lenses, including the Dzofilms and the Nisi Athenas. I will link that in the description below so you can watch it yourself so you can see how that looks comparably. But like I was saying earlier, the Dzofilms leans more in the vintage side of things, more expression in the flares, how it blooms, lower contrast, sharpness is lowered when it's wide open. All those things that we associate vintage or that softer look. That's what Dzo is kind of aiming for. These more clean, a little bit more pristine in some areas, perform a little bit better, more consistently, even though the Dzofilms perform consistently of what they're doing too. Some major differences I think Dzo has an advantage of these lenses is that you can actually switch out the PL mount to EF. And I think that's a miss on Nisi. I understand that they're going for a mirrorless setup, even though the PL can go on any camera, them not having the ability to have switchable mounts from E to PL. But that's one area I would definitely give Dzo. It's a little bit more flexible in that sense, and I really miss having that option. I forgot to mention another thing that Dzo has a leg up on is the amount of focal lengths that they have in their sets versus the Athenas. Right now, the Athenas only came out with 5 lenses, the 14, 25, 35, 50, and 85. And so Dzo has a wide range. They just came out with the 12 mil, and then they have a 135, they have a 90 macro. Like they have a whole slew of different types of focal lengths, standard and off. And that's what I would love to see coming from the Nisis. Hopefully they'll come with a 20 mil or 21, a 40, a 65, and a 135. Like I would definitely grab those lenses because I am on Super 35. So it gets a little bit more closer to equivalent of a full frame in terms of field of view. But I really love those focal lengths on any camera, to be honest, on any sensor. So that would be really great to see Nisi go that route. Outside of that difference, the similarities are quite nice when it comes to this operation of these lenses. Obviously you have a T1.9 versus a T2.1. These are a little bit faster. How does that, translate in the grand scheme of things? Maybe really small, but these both cover full frame or Vista Vision. So they all have a 46 millimeter image circle, which is fantastic. I do love that trend of companies giving us lenses that have a large spectrum of coverage. So you're not stuck into having an issue with a Super 35 lens and you would put it on your full frame camera. You don't have that issue. You don't have any light loss on the corners. So DZO and Nisi both have that in their lenses. So the Athenas come in RF, E-mount, and PL mounts. I own the PL mounts. Now the rear element that protrudes when focusing will be an issue for those who are using adapters with rear ND filters or any other filtrations. I've also come across the Suri PL to E mount adapter on a recent shoot that I did, and that design does not work with the Athenas either.
All right, y'all, so this is Caleb.
Hey.
He came all the way from, was it Raleigh or?
Gaffney, South Carolina.
He is going to be, now you're technically promoted to my first AC, technically.
There you go.
So he has his own Mavo. And we noticed, this is the Suri PL to E mount. So this mount design has a much narrower, back opening. So basically what that means is you can focus all the way down to minimum focus distance, but you can't get to infinity.
The metal bones works perfectly fine. This is what I use for all of my lenses, the E to PL mount from metal bones. But Nisi also did release their own adapters, so I would definitely check those out if you're looking for an option that way. In my opinion, this isn't much of a deal breaker. Sure, you won't have the convenience of using the adapter on the back end, but these still have a 77 filter thread, or you can use step-up rings to put on clamp-on matte boxes to use different types of NDs. There are options out there. I personally use the matte box from Nisi, the C5 matte box, and it has a variable ND option in it, but also has fixed NDs as well. So I just kind of get around with that. But for the 14, it doesn't have this donut yet. I got one from Small Rig, and it's just a 80 mil to 95 mil attachment. Kind of just sits in there, and then you put your clamp-on matte box around it. Tightens it down pretty tightly, and then you're good to rock with filters that way. But if you don't want to go the whole matte box route, this does have some threads around this pedal hood, and you can thread this on to the lens. Caleb Pike had mentioned this too, and I tried it out myself, and it works. Just be mindful of the gaps. But if you need ND in a pinch, this is actually a good solution. Now, I don't have this right now, but Nisi will be releasing rear filters. So on the back of these lenses, you can actually screw off, let's see if this is the right one. Yeah, you can actually screw off this sort of protection lens here. And then that way you can actually screw on whatever mist filter they release, or I don't know, maybe some rear NDs, some rear fixed NDs. That'd be interesting, but there's that option there. And if you're wondering what this is just a vacuum rubber. You can get these off of Amazon, whatever. I got a whole pack because there's something else I need to show you. Now, when it comes to build quality of these lenses overall, these are really nicely weighted. They're pretty much the same weight across the whole board. And one thing I did notice, there were certain places where the lens would feel kind of loose if you just shook it. And that's because I noticed that this mount here was loose. So what I did was take, again, one of these lens rubber tools, cracked it open. I know a lot of you all might not be comfortable doing this. I've been tinkering with lenses for a while now, so I know some of the basics that can get by to fix things. So this comes right off. And then inside, you'll see some screws. And I noticed one of the screws in here was loose. Now, I don't know exactly how that kind of started, but I put some Loctite on that screw again so it won't get loose. And just tighten this back down, and I haven't had any issues since. No wiggling around, so yeah. Outside of that, I haven't had any issues. It was only this copy, but I'm confident to kind of get in there and service it myself. If you're not, hit me up. We'll see what I can do. Now, when it comes to the operation of these lenses, if you're running and gunning with them, just know this is a 300 degrees focus throw. This is perfect for critical focusing if you need to, because it has such a large throw. But if you are running and gunning, you might want to be mindful of the distance between minimum focus and, affinity. I don't see anybody really doing like huge pulls on the camera themselves. You really don't want to do that. Because you can mess up or you rock the camera or whatever. But once you find your general area where your subject's gonna be, is really nice, simple kind of pulls that doesn't make anything distracting, because since there's no lens breathing, coupled with this really nice smooth focusing, you can get some really nice racks that aren't great, and you can track your subject a lot better. I was doing a lot of that when I was in Peru, as we were really just running and gunning with a lens this size, and just getting the shots that we need. And I was just simply pulling focus with my hand like this. Okay, so just a few more notes before wrapping up this video. I know a lot of you all have been asking where you can watch the finished projects, all the things I kind of talked about on this channel. You've been seeing a lot of behind the scenes of. Just go to sunny16.com. You will see majority of the finished projects that are on our site when we post them out, when we post out director's cuts. It takes some time. Sometimes we need approvals and whatnot, but you can see what we've done there. Another thing is, I know right now it is difficult to get your hands on a set of these lenses. I don't know you can rent these out just yet, like from borrow lenses or lens rental. There is a lot of back orders on different mounts that are, so make sure to just kind of keep tabs on B&H or Adorama, places like that. I actually bought my lenses from eBay. I still had to wait almost a month when they said they were supposed to be shipping, but hopefully that's a little bit better now. But that's what I did. I was a little hesitant, but I really wanted these lenses, so I just made that jump, because here in the US it was really difficult to get my hands on these lenses. But I digress. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful. I try to show as much footage as I can so you get an idea of how these lenses are. But if you have any other questions, or what do you think, tell me what you think in the comments below. Definitely check out the links as well. And catch you guys on the next video. I'm out.